So this piece of software called Revive was basically a bridge. It was a wraparound that allowed Vive users to access Oculus Home and play the Oculus exclusive games. Honestly, pretty harmlessly. I mean, you still had to buy the games. There was no real piracy going on. It was used Revive. You were able to get into the store. You were able to play the game. Boom. All's good, right? Well, no. Unfortunately, Oculus found out about this little program called Revive, came up with some really fucking stupid PR type excuse, and got Revive shut down. Now, originally when this news broke, naturally a lot of Vive users were pretty pissed off about it, and, to be fair, a lot of Oculus users were too. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense for Oculus to play the role of Apple, to try to play the Apple role, because the bottom line is Oculus didn't make PC. Oculus didn't make Windows. They made an accessory to PC and Windows. So for them to try to create this like closed ecosystem really just makes them look more like a bad guy than it does a leader in VR technology. It makes them look very fucking ignorant, if anything.
Well, Facebook.
Well, Facebook, yeah, but even Palmer Luckey has stated several times before the Facebook acquisition that they would never do shit like this, and here we are.
Yeah, but in the same time, what's his name? Palmer Luckey?
Yes, sir.
He also was, whenever they were in development with Oculus, Steam, Vive and all. Well, no, it wasn't Vive at the time. It was Steam. Steam was also helping them out with development in their VR, what do you call it? VR progress. And what had happened whenever, like, at some point, the Steam developers and the Oculus developers didn't agree. And especially whenever they got bought out by Facebook, that's whenever they kind of had a breaking apart and they were no longer working together. But from the research that they had been doing, Oculus took a couple of, features and stuff. Well, not features, but like an architect that they were doing before. And this isn't the main topic that we're going to be on, but there's a Vive a Vive employee over at Steam. I think he's like a tech developer. He's like, he figures out what works in the hardware of the Vive. And he took apart the Oculus and he looked at it and he said, hey, this looks familiar. And sure enough, it was very familiar, and it was what they had worked together as a whole when Oculus and Steam were playing nice. But once they left, then they kind of had a falling out, and they didn't agree with each other, Steam and Oculus. So now, it's not really stealing. Even Vive uses the same technology, and Oculus does as well for that one part. And it's not such a big deal because most things kind of share, touchscreens, capacitive touchscreens. There, everybody has them, and nobody. It's not something you can really put a lawsuit on Apple, and so yeah. They don't get along anymore, but there was a time when they did, and Facebook obviously is doing the. Facebook's just really bad, but I don't want to move to Twitter either.
Yeah, well, to touch upon what you were talking about, they are definitely on good terms with each other. So much so that Steam has allowed Oculus to use a lot of the software implementations, such as the Chaperone system and. Any kind of Oculus users can even use Steam VR. It's really open for Oculus users to
from
dip
Steam
into
side,
to get in on the Steam. Which, if you are looking into getting an Oculus Rift, I can't stress this enough. Do not fucking buy your games from Oculus Home. If in the future you decide, you know what, dude, first of all, don't support that bullshit. Don't support this closed ecosystem bullshit that they're trying to put on. It's Facebook being a bunch of assholes and ruining a small company that used to be all open and open source and free this and free that, and just put fucking dollar bills all over the place. Don't support them. you can get most of the games, for the exception of like Lucky's Tale, Eve, Valkyrie, you know, the exclusives. You can get them on Steam, and you should, because in the future, if it just so happens that, I don't know, man, Facebook decides to pull out and they don't want to do, you know, Oculus in the traditional way, you still have your games if you get a Steam headset, you know, the Valve or the HTC Vive. To talk about the whole like software development thing, this is actually an issue that a lot of people are bringing up, and they're kind of, you know, flaming Oculus about, and there's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of comparisons between Steve Jobs and, you know, Microsoft, and, you know, how, you know, that worked out and how they stole the personal computer, etc., etc., etc. It's very similar to how it works with bands I actually work with. Sometimes and this has only really happened once or twice, but in the middle of recording, in the middle of a client working with me, a band member will quit. And naturally, as you know, most musicians are pretty fucking immature, or quote unquote musicians are pretty fucking immature. They jump to the I will sue you because that is my content. That is my riffs. Those are my, you know, whatever. The bottom line is, when you originally worked on the project, it was for the project X. It was for something. So while there have been cases in the past that have gone to court where people have won, like, hey, I didn't get credit, or hey, I didn't get royalties, or hey, blah, 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 blah. The bottom line is, Steam came in to help work on the Oculus Rift. That's what that was. They had a prototype of this, you know, Steam VR headset that they brought into the table, and they went, here are some ideas we have. Maybe we can collaborate. Naturally, Oculus wanted a seated experience. Vive wanted a room scale experience. That's where they kind of diverged on their ideas, and it became obvious, you know, with Facebook involved, that, you know, working together was going to be fucking impossible. But the bottom line is, if they didn't want their tech to be touched, if they didn't want, you know, their hidden archetypes to be, you know, manipulated, copied, reused, anything like that, they shouldn't have come in saying, hey, let's work on Oculus. You know, that was honestly the mistake. If you want to do it in a way where you can sue somebody and be like, dude, that's bullshit, you have them sign a non-disclosure agreement, and you have them and you have maybe the CEO or the lead tech developer or someone come see your product, come see the HTC Vive, come check it out, come check out our product that we're working on, our competing one. If they say yes and they go check it out and they steal your ideas, you can sue the sweet fuck out of them. But the bottom line is, they went in wanting to work on Oculus, and that's what they did. Just because you back out of something, or there's a disagreement, or it just falls through, that doesn't mean that you can go, hey, you know all that work we were working on before? You just don't use any of that. Think around those ideas. Don't use any of them, but just think around them. It doesn't make any sense, and I think it's just starting flame for absolutely no reason. We got really, really off topic there. I am so sorry.
That's fine. I did it.
But yeah, I mean, basically, you know, between them, there is a little bit of fire. It's a natural competitiveness, but I know for a fact that both sides are working together, but Facebook is over here, and some heads at Oculus are over there pulling strings and going, you know what, Oculus is separate from Vive, even though Vive is like, dude, whatever, just come on over here. Just everybody, it's VR. It's a new thing. Let's make it a thing. Let's not make it a walled off garden that only like certain people can use, when VR is already like, what, 1.4% of the entirety of Steam users? Like, the fucking market is tiny. So after the whole Revive thing where, you know, they kind of blocked off, you know, the ability for Vive users to get in, Revive fires back and disables Oculus DRM for all Unreal Engine games. Now, what this means is they've effectively undone the blocking of Revive, and they've actually kind of, I don't know if it was intentional, I haven't read into it too much, but incited a little bit of piracy. Like, allowed users to pirate shit, and it's like...
No, it's not intentional. I've been reading up on it and on Revive's blog posts and stuff, and he encourages people to not do this or use it for torrenting or for pirating their stuff because that's you like you said, the market is so fucking tiny right now. Why pirate it? Because it's just gonna hurt everybody in the long run. But people are gonna be people, and they're not gonna listen. So with the DRM off, they're just probably I don't know what the fuck's gonna happen. It's kind of like a wild west out there right now, and I understand wanting to get back at them, especially because it's such a stupid reason. Because the way before it was like a wraparound. Now Oculus had patched it so that there would be like a hardware check, and it would make sure that if your Oculus wasn't plugged in, it wouldn't run the game at all. But he instead of just making a wraparound of that, which would be really difficult, he just disabled the DRM, and that's like a whole nother level of taking out the middleman.
And honestly, like at this point, it's essentially Oculus. Oculus is fucking with a group of consumers that are hyper tech savvy. Everybody who gets an Oculus Rift, everybody who gets an HTC Vive isn't grandma. None of them are grandma.
Unless they're rich.
Some of them might be rich kids. Majority of them, it's tech savvy people. It's people who have a very strong understanding of how this works. So if Oculus wants to do some damage control, they need to back up. They need to stop. They need to stop with this walled off bullshit. You want to have your exclusives? Fine. Make them timed. Or just make it so that way Vive users can get on Oculus Home and give you their money. Like, I don't understand this bullshit. Like, there's no reason to do it the way they're doing it. If they want so desperately to be the leader in VR technology, they need to be consumer friendly and they need to outdo their competition. If they're so scared of both of those that they're willing to resort to exclusivity tactics, it just means that they're not confident enough to go, you know what, we are the leader because we know we're the leader. Instead, they backpedaled and they had delays, and now there's this botched launch and the touch controllers are all late, and it's like, why would I not just get an HTC Vive? I mean, shit, if I ordered an HTC Vive today, I would get it in 2 weeks. If I were to order an Oculus right now, I would wait 4 months. Are you, like, really? How is that okay? Honestly, at this point, Oculus really needs to reevaluate how they're doing this. Once they catch up with their pre-orders and they start launching to stores, they need to figure out how are we going to get our hardcore consumers back? Because honestly, if you lose the hardcore this early in the game, who's going to be out there going, hey, dude, check out this tech I have. Hey, dude, check out this new headset I got. Dude, you want to try VR? None of that. None of that is gonna happen. There's no trickle effect. You're going to have to rely on store demos, and you're going to have to rely on some 18-year-old Best Buy employee to go, all right, you're going to need a GTX 970, at least an i5 processor. You're going to need this tower, this motherboard, this power supply. We have this pre-built rig if you want. It's only $1,300. And then this headset is $650. Then you need to buy games for. Nobody's going to bite that shit. Nobody's going to go for that. So honestly, at the end of the day, Oculus needs to figure out a way to be more user-friendly and less fucking restrictive. I don't understand where this attitude came from, but fuck if it isn't harmful as hell.
Yeah, and it's like really, a lot of people are attributing it to the fact that it's Facebook owned now because Facebook really hates to link out to other websites. So like videos and everything, they're encouraged to be uploaded through Facebook primarily instead of being uploaded to YouTube and then linked onto Facebook. And this is really apparent on mobile phones because linking from a YouTube video into Facebook isn't always 100%. It's like maybe you'll get a thumbnail, maybe the link will break or stuff like that, and it's bullshit. And what do you call it? There's a quote. I'm loosely quoting him. It's this YouTuber named Woodsy, and he is like a huge lover of the Steam controller and Vive and just VR in general. But what he had said is really like right when he said it, I was like, God damn, that is so right. Like, why would they do this? And what he said loosely was that Oculus, they're saying that they're selling their headsets at price. The cost that what it costs Oculus to make these headsets is what they're selling it for. So they're not making any profit off of the headsets, which is what they're saying. And if that were true, then all of their money would only be able to come from Oculus Home, their storefront, because they would take a percentage of whatever the games make. And if that were the case, why in the hell would they chop a leg off of them by closing off Oculus Home away from Vive? Because then that's just leaving those consumers out on the dry, and all that they would just own a Vive, and then they'd be able to buy their Oculus games, and it's not hurting anybody. They're still spending money, and if your Oculus isn't making any money, why would you close it off? You're cutting off your profits. So I mean, it's all in speculation right now. But it's like you said, it's all bullshit. And honestly, Roger, I don't think you should get a Rift, because I myself, like, I'm just gonna go straight for Vive if and when I can. Fuck comfort and all that other bullshit. I mean, that's irrelevant. I know what I want to be playing, and room scale is what I want, and not bullshit from Rift.